Hello Cogitantes! Chapter 3 of Black Myth Wukong graciously hands us a gift, one of the most fiercely debated, occasionally misunderstood topics in gaming today, feminism, or maybe what I like to call the good and bad uses of feminism. And Kang Jin Star, one of the most beautiful characters and the perfect case study. So grab a bowl of immortal peaches and some heavenly wine, and let's dive into this journey together. First of all, according to the lore, Kang Jin Star wasn't even female to begin with. But are we shocked by this? I mean, in a world where tigers preach sermons and monkeys sprout tentacles, a dragon having a gender-bending moment feels practically mundane. Call it cosmic accessorizing. What does Kang Jin Star mean? In traditional Chinese astronomy, she's associated with the Kang Mansion, one of the 28 lunar mansions that map the sky. The Kang Mansion aligns with the Azure Dragon of the East. Dragon is long in Chinese, as in Kang Jin Long. The dragon symbolizes traits like independence and courage. Then there's Jin, meaning metal, implying strength and endurance. So Kang Jin Star is deeply rooted in a cosmological system that represents, in a word, strength. Now let's talk about design. I believe this character is incredibly well crafted and inspired. Her appearance in the game is modeled after a real-life statue from the Yuhang Temple in Fucheng, Jincheng. A choice that firmly grounds this character in Chinese cultural heritage. But as I mentioned before, Kang Jin Long in Journey to the West chapters 65-66 isn't technically female. In the original story, she's described with masculine traits, and this portrayal has remained consistent across adaptations, including the popular 1986 TV series where a male actor played the role. But the creative team of the game really went for it, breaking with tradition and swapping Kang Jin's gender. Nothing says innovation today like a well-timed gender flip, right? But without deeper substance, all of this could easily be dismissed as a cosmetic change to tick representation boxes. Stuff that the Western journalistic clergy absolutely loves. Sure, she's a woman, and she's strong by name and symbol, but what truly makes her innovative? This is where feminism comes into play. Kang Jin Star does something remarkable. She rehabilitates the image of women, standing in contrast to most female portrayals in Journey to the West. In the Ming Dynasty context, as Matthew Sommer explains in his book The Fox Spirit, the Stone Maiden, and Other Transgender Histories from Late Imperial China, women were often cast in a negative light, portrayed as temptresses, monsters, or malevolent enemies. These archetypes marked female characters as the other, either dangerous or morally suspect. For example, in classical Chinese thought, going back to the classic of Mountains and Seas, a mythological work from the 3rd century BCE, women frequently held negative roles. This is exemplified in Journey to the West, chapter 54, by the Kingdom of Women, an isolated realm ruled by powerful, sexually assertive women. This trope, rooted in traditional ethnography, used Confucian gender norms to draw a line between civilization and savagery, the so-called way of the animals, according to the Book of Rights. Societies with different gender norms and sexual customs were often placed at the fringes of civilization, painted as barbaric or even bestial. In some descriptions, these women were portrayed with strange anatomy, excessive body hair, or even engaging in relationships with animals like dogs or snakes. Late imperial maps even located this kingdom of women on an island off China's southeast coast. By the Qing era, this portrayal was often associated with Taiwan, where indigenous societies appeared to have a more prominent female presence. In this context, Kang Jin Star's character and design breaks away from the historical archetype of the barbaric woman. Instead, she brings a new level of strength and agency to a traditionally male figure, a friend of Wukong's party in Journey to the West, redefining what it means to be a strong and beautiful female presence in a story that usually marginalizes women. As for a role as an enemy in Black Myth Wukong, we encounter Kang Jin Star as an antagonist, setting up a classic good versus evil dynamic where Wukong appears to represent righteousness in contrast to her opposition. But as we saw with Tiger Vanguard, this dichotomy isn't as straightforward as it seems. In the original story, Kang Jin Long actually begins as a friendly character. She once saved Sun Wukong. When he was trapped between the golden symbols, an artifact used by Yellow Brow to trap victims and, after 3 days, reduce them to blood and pus, Kang Jin Long intervened. She drilled through the symbols, allowing Wukong to shrink and escape. Fast forward to the events of the game. After Wukong's supposed fall, Yellowbrow returns with a twisted vision of enlightenment, establishing his new West, which warps Buddhist teachings to justify a distorted path of spiritual liberation. Yellowbrow, ever the spiritual guide, uses Buddha's seed sack. Yes, that's the actual name, to really pull people in, weaken them, and let's just say, enlighten them into submission. The sack is more than a physical prison. The vision of the T-tailed goldfish inside the sack distorts the minds of those trapped, amplifying desires and twisting their sense of reality. As for the translation, let's just say the English team went for gold. Yellowbrow literally showed her the goldfish inside the sack. Suspicious of Yellowbrow's new enlightenment and the mysterious disappearance of her fellow constellation, Dawnstar, Kang Jin infiltrates one of Yellowbrow's banquets in the New West, but she's quickly captured and imprisoned in the seed sack, where her buried feelings resurface, especially her lingering desire for Sun Wukong, the hero she once saved. She experiences an overwhelming surge of desire, fueled by illusions of Wukong and a misleading sense of renewal. Inside the seed sack, her desires are amplified and brought to the surface, like raw ingredients slowly refined into a concentrated essence. This leads us to the game encounter. When we see Kang Jin again, she's attempting to persuade Bajie to join Yellowbrow's New West. But this isn't the same proud celestial figure we once knew. Now she's using temptation, attempting to seduce Bajie into submission. She even offers her body in an attempt to draw him over to Yellowbrow's side. Bajie, indulgent as he may be, can see the difference. He realizes that this isn't the Kang Jin he once knew, pointing out that she's been corrupted by Yellowbrow's goldfish, a relic used to manipulate her mind within the seed sack. But the seed sack amplifies desire, it doesn't create it. So when we hear Kang Jin's words, are they truly her own, or is Yellowbrow's influence simply magnifying desires that were already there, hidden beneath the surface? This brings us to an intriguing possibility. Could Kang Jin's journey actually deepen Journey to the West's exploration of the limits of Buddhist non-attachment? In other words, is her story a critique of how desire, even when seemingly suppressed, can emerge when confronted with illusion and temptation, challenging the very foundation of non-attachment? As you may know, Journey to the West isn't just about adventure and folklore. It's also a sharp critique of Buddhism and Taoism. This wasn't accidental. It partly reflects the author's disillusionment with how these philosophies were practiced in his time. Written during the late Ming Dynasty, the novel subtly critiques the religious and political powers of the era, which often used ideals like non-attachment to keep people docile and disconnected from societal issues. Take, for example, the Ming Dynasty's imperial court, heavily influenced by a powerful class of eunuchs who controlled vast parts of the administration. They promoted ideologies of loyalty, duty, and acceptance, principles rooted in Confucian and Buddhist teachings, but while preaching these values, they exploited their positions, amassing wealth and manipulating the emperor for their own gain. In this context, Journey to the West poses a provocative question. Does spiritual detachment truly lead to enlightenment, or can it just as easily leave someone vulnerable to illusion and manipulation? Now, how does this relate to Kang Jin? Her hidden desire for Wukong is precisely what Yellowbrow seizes upon. The non-attachment Kang Jin was taught encouraged her to ignore these emotions rather than engage with and understand them. This cultivated emptiness left her defenseless against her own unexamined desires. This is why I believe Kang Jin Star is a character who, whether intentionally or not, brings more than just a gender swap. First of all, she's not entirely a victim of Yellowbrow, and for that matter, Yellowbrow isn't exactly a straightforward villain either, but we will save that for another video, when we dive into concepts of good and evil in Chinese culture. Kang Jin is, in many ways, a victim of her own desires. Ignoring her inner world leaves her vulnerable to the illusions around her. To explain this, it's helpful to recall the Buddhist philosopher Fazang and his famous idea, the mere ideation theory. This will be brief, don't worry. In simple terms, it suggests that the outside world is just a projection of our own minds. Fazang explained this with a brilliant metaphor, the golden lion. Imagine a magnificent lion statue made of gold. Each part of the lion, the mane, paws, claws, is simply gold-shaped in different ways. When you look closely, you realize the lion itself doesn't exist independently. It's only real because of the gold. The lion is just an illusion created by the arrangement of the gold. So if we apply this to Kang Jin, we see that when she gets trapped in the seed sack, it doesn't create new desires for her. Instead, it amplifies what's already in her heart, her hidden desires for Wukong, her golden monkey, if you will. Her mind fills the seed sack with illusions, but they're just projections, her own gold shaped into something else. It's like she's standing in front of a mirror that only reflects her mind, but the reflection becomes so vivid that she can't tell it's not real. Let's add another layer with a Western thinker, David Hume, who had similar ideas to Fazang. Hume argued that everything we know about the world is just a bundle of perceptions. What we call a tree or a table isn't a real object out there. It's just a collection of sights, sounds, and textures that our minds organize into something we believe is real. If we interpret Kang Jin's story through Hume's lens, we see that there's no objective Wukong in her world, only her mind's bundle of perceptions creating a Wukong that exists solely for her. It's all an illusion, a projection of her own suppressed feelings, echoing an attempt to control desires rather than truly understand them. And I believe her story invites us to recognize that the greatest traps aren't built by others, they're built by us. But what about good and evil? In a brief anticipation of my take on Yellowbrow, I'll simply say that in Chinese cosmology, beings embody both yin and yang, light and shadow, virtue and vice, rather than aligning strictly as good or evil. As a celestial figure, Kang Jin isn't bound by mortal allegiances or purely benevolent intentions. Her role as a star ties her to the celestial cycles of order and chaos, rather than loyalty to any one person, even Sun Wukong. Furthermore, as the animation at the end of the chapter suggests, our view of good and evil may depend more on how situations are framed and manipulated than on any inherent quality of goodness or evil. Influenced by Taoist cosmology, powerful beings like Kang Jin act according to cosmic duties or personal enlightenment, not human-defined morals. This is why her story becomes one of a woman searching for her true self, not bound by aesthetic traditions, Ming societal standards, classic representation of Chinese women, or submission to a man, but driven by her primal desires and the consequences of repressing them. It's a subtle critique of Buddhism, questioning whether suppression truly leads to spiritual growth. Through this lens, Kang Jin brings feminism to a whole new level, within a story that originally had no concept of feminism, since it's a modern phenomenon and wasn't an issue at the time of Journey to the West. Oh, and apparently, game science would really like us not to discuss feminism in Black Myth Wukong. But hey, when has a little creative censorship ever stopped anyone? Honestly, we are just warming up. We are here to have an open conversation. That's why I do exactly the opposite of what game science suggests. Why? Because, as I've said before, most recently during the costume controversy with Stellar Blade, censorship isn't the answer. If your game can't survive a few tough questions, maybe the story itself could use some enlightenment. Art should invite criticism and conversation, not cower in silence. And here's something game science might want to consider, as well as Chinese gaming if it wants to become a big player on a global scale. Just as with Stellar Blade, open debate often fuels a game's success. If your story and characters hold up, then no amount of discussion will break them down. In fact, a bit of controversy might even make the game stronger. As Spinoza famously argued, libertas philosophandi, the freedom to speak our minds, is essential. Even if the ideas are flawed, the freedom to discuss them is a fundamental right, and it's one we should always protect. Once we start talking seriously about this story, this character, we begin to see why Kang Jin stands out not just as a beautifully designed antagonist, but as perhaps the best female character possible in this universe and an example of gender swap done right. She embodies a nuanced feminism that challenges Chinese history and contrasts with the Western surface-level call for more female characters. Discussing her role as a feminist icon in this game isn't misplaced, because it reveals the difference between good and bad feminism. True feminism is the legitimate struggle against prejudice for women's emancipation and independence. The consumeristic version of feminism, however, is a superficial caprice, an endless pursuit to increase numbers, to tick endless representation boxes, like the kasayas of Elder Jinchi, which serve only to satisfy desires without substance. So what do you think of my analysis? How does Kang Jin Star's story resonate with you? Kang Jin Star does not die at the end of the battle, and I think this character has a lot of potential and could be more central in the story. So I can't wait to see where her story takes us in the next installments. Share your theories in the comments or challenge mine. Let's talk about it. Thanks for sticking around through this lore epistemology. Before you go, if you found value in this exploration, make sure to hit that like button. And if you are new to our Platonic Symposium, subscribe to join our small but pugnacious community of Cogitantes, a group dedicated to thinking critically, challenging the norm, and pushing against the grain. Happy mindful gaming. Until next time.